The two exact things that Jesus said would happen when he's about ready to come back to the planet. It's happening right. And the Epstein files is the nail in the coffin. That's not a conspiracy theory. They admit their whole goal in a nutshell is when we're done with the planet, humans will no longer be humans.
The demons or aliens told you that when we go up in the rapture, they're coming down.
They don't need God. They don't need Jesus. They're going to create their own immortality.
Yeah.
It's really a demon in disguise in a biosuit called an alien. But guess what? Whether people realize it or not, now the planet has actual demons walking physically all over the earth. And then you go into this is where my mind goes.
Welcome to Tipping Point. I'm Jimmy Evans. Today I have one of our most popular guests joining me again today for part 2 of his program to talk about his new book and documentary about President Trump and how he is making end-time prophecy come true right now. Pastor Billy Crone will be joining me in just a minute. But before I introduce him, I want to tell you about a special project we have going on right now that you can be a part of. My associate here at Tipping Point, John Anderson, and I have written a new book called Haman's Lies. The subtitle is Exposing the Ancient Roots of Anti-Semitism and Why the Spirit of Esther Must Arise. I've written over 60 books, and this is the most important book I have ever written. And John and I wrote this book because of the explosion of anti-Semitism going on right now, even among believers. It's truly shocking. Tucker Carlson, Candace Owens, Nick Fuentes, and many others are poisoning the minds of people and young people all over the world with lies and slander that are just adding fuel to the fire of hatred toward Israel and the Jewish people. John and I have written this book to expose the truth, historical truth, and biblical truth that we document in this book about the nation of Israel and the Jewish people to equip believers to stand against the lies being told and to be able to respond to those lies with documented facts that are irrefutable. Haman's Lies is a book that will show you where and how anti-Semitism was born and how it always tells the same lies about the Jewish people that always ends in persecution and death. In the book, we expose in detail the 25 most common lies that are being told about Israel and the Jews and the irrefutable historical and biblical truth every believer needs to know. This book releases on March 31st, but you can go to Amazon.com right now and pre-order a copy for yourself and maybe for a loved one or someone you know who has been influenced by anti-Semitism. It's rampant. We need to be educated and stand up for Israel and the Jewish people. But besides ordering a copy for yourself, I want you to help us send a free signed copy of this book, Haman's Lies, to President Trump, Vice President Vance, President Trump's entire cabinet, every U.S. Senator and Congressman and Congresswoman, including the squad, every Supreme Court justice, all 50 state governors, as well as key national influencers in media and business across America, and 1,000 pastors and spiritual leaders. It'll cost us $15 a book, and that includes shipping and handling to send these out, and that's our cost. Will you please go to endtimes.com/donate, give your most generous gift today, and with your gift of any amount right now, we're going to send you a free electronic copy. We're going to send you a link to an electronic copy of Haman's Lies as our thank you. When you give, you're helping us continue the ministry of Tipping Point as we preach the gospel and broadcast end-time teaching around the world every day. And you're helping us send a free signed copy of Haman's Lies to the top leaders in America. Go to endtimes.com/donate to help us send a free signed copy to the leaders of America who need to know the truth. As our thank you, we're going to send you a link to a free electronic copy of Haman's Lies. I'm very excited about this project and believe that, like Queen Esther, God has called us, you and me, to stand up for the Jewish people for such a time as this. Please stand with us. Right now, I want to welcome back one of our most popular guests, Pastor Billy Crone. For the second part of his program that he started last week, Billy is the senior pastor of Sunrise Bible Church in Las Vegas, Nevada, and he's also the founder of Get a Life Media. Billy's written many best-selling books and produced many powerful documentaries about the end times. But he's joining me today to talk again about his newest book and documentary Trump and the Paradox Prophecies. Billy, thank you for joining me today.
Thanks for having me.
Good to have you back. We did part 1 last week. Absolutely fascinating program, talking about the 10 regions of the world, the Revelation 17, Daniel, all the places in the Bible where it talks about there will be 10 kingdoms in the end. And this is called the Trump in the Paradox Prophecies. And paradox just simply means it's he, without knowing, he is actually doing things that are promoting end times prophecy.
Yeah, that's the paradox. He's doing some good things. Give credit where credit's due. I'm glad that the economy's whooping around. I'm glad the interest rates are slowly starting to come down. I'm glad the gas price has gone down for most folks. But guess what? Paradoxically, there's decisions being made that has everything to do with Bible prophecy.
Yep. So if you didn't see part 1, go look at part 1. It's absolutely fascinating. We talked about Iran and what's happening right now in Iran, how that is lining up with Bible prophecy. And so there are 2 more parts to your book. There are 3 parts to the paradox. The second part is the days of Lot. Mm-hmm. And you're talking about how President Trump, knowingly or unknowingly, how he is actually promoting certain things that are part of Bible prophecy.
Yeah.
So talk about the days of Lot.
Yeah, days of Lot, of course, I would assume that most of us, certainly as Christians, would know Lot, what's going on with Lot, and what happened with Lot. And of course, he's tied with the Sodom and Gomorrah story.
Right.
That was clearly judged by God, wiped out by God, by the way, because they were committing an abomination called homosexuality. So Jesus said that here's a sign that you know it's getting close when I return, as it was in the days of Lot. He talks about that in Luke 17. And then he also adds, as it was in the days of Noah. Right. So you got, okay, so when Jesus is getting ready to come back, we're going to see a repeat of whatever happened in the days of Lot. And then we're going to see a repeat in the days of Noah. So wait a second. So the days of Lot, homosexuality and all that stuff, and that's really going to happen again? It's going to permeate the planet? What's all across the planet right now, Pastor Jimmy?
Yeah.
Remember back in the 80s? I think the first big shock was Rock Hudson. Rock Hudson came out. Remember that?
Liberace.
Right? And then, of course, Liberace, but people thought, well, he probably was that. But Rock Hudson coming out, whoa, whatever. And I remember back in the day when that first happened and that you started to see an acceptance of that behavior that caused the destruction of these communities, the church rose up pretty much en masse and said, no, what are you talking about? Everybody knows this is not right. It's not appropriate. God judges it and things of that nature. The next step was Tom Hanks did Philadelphia.
All right.
And that was the first time that I noticed, I was in Bible college at the time, and I noticed that there was a crack in the church.
Yep. That
they were more concerned about sympathy than being biblical. And nobody's advocating hate. I don't advocate hate or whatever. I'm just saying, and I don't hate anybody that's involved in that. I got, believe it or not, I got folks that I witnessed to and family, whatever. So I don't hate them. Well, I just disagree when it comes to this moral issue.
I have, people that are, in my life, in different places in my life that are gay.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's very important. Well, first of all, I came out of a very rebellious and immoral lifestyle. Mm-hmm. Not homosexuality, but I was immoral. I got saved a week before my wife and I got married, and that's, that was changed my life. You came out of New Age, Satanism.
Oh, and the same immorality. So, yeah.
The person who loves you the most is the person who tells you what you need to hear,
right? Not
what you want to hear.
Yeah.
And so what we're saying right now, we're not saying with any spirit of hate, condescension, self-righteousness. It's biblical.
Mm-hmm.
So when Jesus talks about the days of Lot, and you talk about in your book that when people say, well, nobody, Jesus never talked about homosexuality. He said, it'll be better for Sodom and Gomorrah on the day of judgment than you. Okay. Yeah. He's condemning homosexuality right there.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and I'm glad you brought that up because we have been beaten down as Christians.
Yes.
We're not advocating hate. A lot of the accusations that are against, dare I say, true born again Christians, because I will just say this, and I say the same thing in the book and the DVD. If you claim to be a Christian and you are filled with hate towards these people or anybody, and you are calling for violence, shame on you. You are not saved, or you need to repent and get right with God.
That's right.
That is not how you share the gospel.
Right.
So, but with that said, it's almost flipped to where a lot of hatred now is pointed towards us as Christians who just disagree on a moral issue. I'm not advocating hate. I'm not saying you should lose your job or anything of that nature. I'm just, but it's gone on so long now to where, guess what? Christians are losing their jobs just because they disagree. And you look at a lot of the behavior on us, it's very forceful, which, by the way, I don't think is by chance, because go back to the Genesis account, right? With the days of Lot. These guys didn't want to just come to the house to have sex with the angels that they thought were men, homosexuality. They were very forceful. They wanted to break down the door. So even that kind of attitude is being repeated today. But here's my point. Because it's almost flipped now, and most Christians are afraid to even talk about this subject, part of it is because the church is now silent on this subject. And so Christians aren't equipped. So I said all that to get this. That's why I spend a large portion getting the Christian equipped, how to have a loving, biblical, interactive discussion with those who are going down that route, even logically and philosophically.
I mean, not just people who are gay, but people who are pro-gay.
Yeah, exactly. And so that we can have an intelligent, biblical, loving conversation because Christians aren't equipped. And so I deal with 15 false accusations that are made against the Christian. If anything, get it for that. If you've got lovers,
really
friends,
and truly, it's a fantastic section that every believer needs to read.
Yeah, exactly. And you'll be able to go tit for tat on all the false accusations, including, well, the Old Testament said that shellfish was an abomination and we can eat shellfish today. So that you're taking it out of context with the moral, the civil, and the religious law and things of that nature. So we go in great detail on that aspect to get you equipped. But the bottom line is this, back to the prophecy. The days of Lot. Everybody, I would assume, can agree that, okay, if you're honest with the scripture, why did those cities get judged? Because of homosexuality. Okay, so that's what it is. So therefore, if that sign is getting close, which is a sign that Jesus is getting close to return, then we have to see the planet permeated with that same kind of behavior, homosexuality. Pastor Jimmy's everywhere. So here, now you go, well, what's that got to do with Trump? The Trump administration, and this was going on even back in the first term, not only pro-LGBT, but they were punishing nations that would not go along with the LGBT and were wanting to take a more biblical stance. And so you're helping to propagate this global behavior and things of that nature. But I want to bring out one aspect, and this was, I'm going like, man, talk about hot off the press. And I wasn't even thinking this when we were initially doing the research, but read Genesis 19, the days of Lot and what was going on there. And most people, we've read this how many times and we read it too fast and we skip over it. It says it there not once, but twice. It wasn't just the men who came to Lot's door forcefully to have sex with the men, the angels, they thought they were men, homosexuality. It said the young and old alike. It says it not just once, it says it twice. Looked it up in the Hebrew. Sure enough, young means boy or lad.
Oh, pedophilia. Yeah.
So technically, if you let the scripture speak for itself, go back to the prophecy, another unthinkable has to happen. If Jesus is getting ready to come back, the days of Lot, then we should not only see homosexuality permeating the planet, but what? Pedophilia. Good thing we don't see any signs of that. Epstein files. Epstein files. And you talk about it's happening, Pastor Jimmy, right before our very eyes. Now, it's been happening, it's been going on, but we're just now finding out about it. Because the Epstein files, you can call it underage minors all you want, teenagers all you want. Let's just call it for what it is. You're trying to soften it. It's pedophilia.
That's right.
It's pedophilia. So then you look at the players who are involved in that. Pick a country. They're all over the world. Even royalty, all over the world. The technocrats, billionaire elites, all over the world. All over the world. So go back to that. Well, wait a second. That means we just now found out, but what's been going on behind the scenes is not only a global permeation of homosexuality, but even pedophilia.
That's right.
The two exact things that Jesus said would happen when he's about ready to come back to the planet. It's happening. And the Epstein files is the nail in the coffin.
Well, you have in your book here, the 15 accusations, but then you just say, why is it wrong? It says it harms themselves.
Yeah.
And you give statistics here. Domestic, and this is among homosexuals, domestic violent rates are higher among homosexuals, nearly double heterosexual population. Homosexuals are 50% more likely to suffer from depression and engage in substance abuse than the rest of the population. 73% of psychiatrists in the American Psychiatric Association report that homosexual men are less happy than others, and they believe their problems are due to personal conflicts than to avoid social stigmatization. The risk of suicide for homosexuals jumped over 200% if an individual had engaged in a homosexual lifestyle. Homosexual men are 6 times more likely to have attempted suicide than heterosexual men. And this is why the average lifespan of a homosexual is on average 24 years shorter than a heterosexual man. Now it goes on to talk about many other aspects of this. But, when you love a person, you tell them what they need to hear. Mm-hmm. You tell them biblical truth. And some people, they have children that are gay. And I had a friend of mine who's a pastor, and his son came home one day and he said, "I'm gay." And the parents did the right thing. I know Christian leaders who found out one of their kids were gay and they changed their theology.
Yep, they flipped.
Yeah. And one man I know very well walked his son down the aisle to marry another man. Very strong Christians. As soon as they found out their son was gay, they changed all their theology. Well, this friend of mine, his son came home and said, "I'm gay, and I've got a partner, and I want you to accept my partner." And this pastor said, "I love you. I'll always love you. You'll always be welcome in my home. He never will be welcome in the home.
Yep.
But we will never accept it.
Right.
We accept you, and we love you." So for 7 years, this young man went and lived in a full-blown homosexual lifestyle.
Yeah.
7 years later, he came back and said, "I repent. That's not what I thought it would be." Yeah. He's married, children, grandchildren. What that pastor did is a model of, "I love you. I'll always love you. You'll always be welcome," not him.
Yeah.
We're not going to accept this as normal. Why? Because I'm not going to help you go to hell.
Right.
I'm not going to pat you on the back and tell you it's okay when it's not okay.
Right. And sin in general, what is sin? Sin hurts, harms, and destroys 100% of the time.
Yeah, that's right.
Homosexuality is not the unpardonable sin. It's, in biblical terms, no different than if somebody's a kleptomaniac.
Yeah.
Or a liar.
That's right, exactly.
Or whatever. It's just a particular sin that you choose to go down. And unless sin is dealt with and forgiven through Jesus Christ, anybody, whether it's involved in homosexuality or a thief or a liar, you're going to hell. And so how is it loving for me to keep my mouth shut with that? Plus, in general, the sin will ultimately destroy you. And you go down that route, that one's very dangerous. We warn people about cancer, don't smoke, eat right, whatever, but we here's a behavior that is statistically, you're going to have a short life and a bad life, a depressing life. You're going to want to kill yourself, lots of drug abuse, physical abuse. That's not good. And you're just going to let them go down that route? That's not a loving person. That's not biblical. Let me share with you, I got to share this when we're on this topic. One of my best friends at Bible college, my wife and I met him. You talk about somebody who gets really irate when the church goes soft on this issue and compromises. It's him. And he came out, I went to Bible college in Sacramento, and he came out, he was a former male homosexual prostitute heroin addict on the streets of San Francisco. You're about in this as thick as you can get.
Yeah.
And I'll never forget what he told me. Of course, he got radically saved. And of course, when he got radically saved, truly born again, guess what?
No.
Nobody had to give him a sermon. He didn't have to listen to this podcast.
No.
He inherently knew via the Holy Spirit, that was wrong. But he was a brand new creature in Christ, right? And God pulled that away and all that stuff. Anyway, I'll never forget what he said. He said, "I wanted to get out 10 years before, but I didn't think I had a way out." And he says, because I would be going to the bars, and I would be sitting there totally miserable, totally depressed, hating what I was doing. And I'd start to talk about it, and the secular person on the left said, well, what are you worried about? You know, it's perfectly fine. He said, then on my right side was the so-called Christian, which I always thought was, what's a Christian doing at a bar? But anyway, but they profess to be a Christian, but his so-called Christian influence. And he says, and so then I would go to them for hope. And he says, and they told me, don't worry about it. God made you that way. He says, so I sat there even more deflated, wishing I could quit, wishing I could get out, hoping there was a way out. And both sides were telling me there is no way out. And he had to have a radical personal experience in his car with Jesus Christ himself before he can get set free.
Wow.
But one thing, and because of that, he says, don't you ever go soft on this issue. There's people like me.
That's right.
We put up the face, we act like this is great, but it's not. We're in absolute internal turmoil because it's wrong. And most of us don't really even like it, but we got into that. Okay, but we need people to tell us the truth in love, that there's hope, there's a way out, there's freedom, because it's total bondage.
I spoke for several years for an international convention of a ministry. They help people to come out of homosexuality.
Yeah.
Not through hate or preaching down to them, but through love.
Yeah.
And speaking there, I would sit before I preached and I would listen to testimony after testimony after testimony of people who'd come out. This one lady stood up, and she's probably around 40 years old, and she said that she was gay and getting married to a woman. And she and her fiance, a woman, were having dinner one night, and she mentioned to her that she was a Christian. This woman is telling testimony, she said, I was a Christian. And the woman that was going to marry her said, well, I'm not marrying you if you're a Christian. She said, why? She said, because you're a terrible Christian. She said, the Bible clearly tells us this is wrong.
Yeah.
And if you're a Christian and you don't know that this is wrong, I don't want to marry you. So they broke up.
Right.
And she said, that was the beginning of my journey. And she said, I'm now married to a man. I have 4 children. She said, Jesus so has transformed me. I can't even remember that life. It's like it was another person.
Yeah.
And I heard testimony after testimony. That's why the church needs to stand up lovingly and help people to Jesus, help people to truth, rather than just telling people, hey, God made you that way. How depressing is that? Well, we're all sinners. That's not God doing that. I mean, that was Adam and Eve.
Yeah.
But Jesus comes and transforms our life. I was immoral, not gay, but I was immoral before I got saved. And what I always thought, Billy, when you talk about the wages of sin is death, the reason I got saved was because I did everything you could think of to be happy. Partied and drank and ran around with my friends and, slept around, but I wasn't happy. Mm-hmm. And I would go to bed at night and I was empty and lonely. I mean, I had friends all over the place, all these great experiences. And I was empty and lonely the instant, and I'd heard the gospel. And after my bachelor party that I cheated on my wife, my fiance at that point, at my bachelor party, I cheated. The next morning, I woke up in my friend's bathroom and I walked in and looked at myself in the mirror and I thought, you're not a good person. Mm. And I said, standing in the bathroom that morning, Jesus, I'll follow you for the rest of my life. I'll never turn back. And I'm telling you, Billy, the emptiness inside of me immediately, that's been 53 years ago. It's as real to me right now as it was then.
Yeah.
I remember so well doing everything the world told me to do. Yeah. And I was good at it. And then, of course, you came out of Satanism and all that. It's awful.
Yeah.
But the joy, the peace, I would have been a totally different person if it were not for Jesus in my life. And so everything we're sharing here, it's just the truth that we're living in the days of Lot. Billy, the pornography in the world right now, there's never been anything like it in the history of the world. It literally covers the world. Young people, anyone with one of these is in touch with a world of filth and pornography. And so we've never seen something like this. Let's talk about the days of Noah. The third part of your book is the days of Noah. How do the days of Noah differ? Because there are some similarities. Mm-hmm. How does it differ from Lot?
Well, the big difference is the Genesis 6 account tells us a couple aspects of the days of Noah. And just to cut to that one aspect, it clearly says there, as wild as it is in the text, that there was a hybridization of mankind going on.
Right.
that humans were being turned into non-humans. There was a non-human race being leashed on the planet. The Bible calls it Nephilim, giants. And so basically, cut to the chase, it is what it is. Part of the reason why God judged the planet last time in the days of Noah was because mankind was being turned into non-humans.
Right.
Okay? Called the Nephilim. And you go, well, there's no sign of that ever happening. I wish. But even that is happening before our very eyes. It's called the transhumanism movement.
And it's huge.
It's massive, Pastor Jimmy. And when I had heard about it, there was very few resources on it back in the day when I first started going down that rabbit trail. But now, cat's out of the bag. This is not only a global movement, but sure enough, the people in charge of this global movement are in some of the biggest high places around the planet, every country, and they're the richest people on the planet,
Yep.
and the people who are at the top of the technocrat list, high advanced technology. And what they basically, why it's called transhumanism, is the movement says with science and technology, it is their duty as the elites that they need to help mankind, whether we want it or not, to transcend the human limitations and speed up the process of, quote, evolution, which is the first lie they've fallen for, and that they're going to create a better new human race.
Yep.
Now, I've said it before, but I'll say it again just to give people some action points. That's not a conspiracy theory. They admit their whole goal in a nutshell is when we're done with the planet, humans will no longer be humans. They call it human 2.0, post-human species, neo-humanity, and augmented humanity. Just 4 different ways of saying we're basically going to make mankind into not mankind anymore.
Yeah.
It's a repeat of the days of Noah. Now, of course, they can't come on the scene and say, hey, guess what? We're going to repeat the sin of the days of Noah and turn everybody into a Nephilim. That's bad advertisement. Who's going to fall for that one?
Yeah.
So not only do they come up with the new terms, human 2.0, et cetera, blah, 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 give yourself an upgrade, but they say it's going to give us the 3 supers. This is what they pitch. So they break it down for you. If you would just let us do our transhumanism technology on you in different ways, biotechnology, nanotechnology, brain chips, all kinds of stuff, we're going to give you 3 supers. The first one, they say, is going to give super health, and to where you won't get, in theory, diseases anymore. They can get rid of cancer and all this other stuff. And you're just going to be supercharged with health. And dare I say, it also comes with super abilities to where they said, when we get done genetically modifying you, you could run as fast as a horse. You could run for hours without ever having to take a breath and things of that nature. And this is in print. This is not a conspiracy.
Your book, you document all this.
Yeah, exactly. And you're going like, wait a second, that's starting to sound like a superhero, like a Captain America who was a scrawny guy and he got jacked up at the fluid and put him in a cooker and he comes out instantly with these big giant muscles. He could run super fast. That's transhumanism. And so they pitch it. Well, hey, as you mentioned, rightly so, hey, everybody's used to technology and give your phone an upgrade. Hey, how about if we give you an upgrade? And you think of that culture?
Yeah.
Who's also been immersed with superhero propaganda? Who wouldn't do it? They're being prepared for that.
Well,
but that's
Ray Kurzweil, who's a lead engineer for Google, says by 2030, because you mentioned 2030 a lot, humans will be hybrids.
Yes, exactly. And he also said, past tense, by 2025, we will be able to download the contents of the human brain and re-upload that into a cyborg, a clone, a computer experience, avatar. Hey, they just rebooted that just in time, didn't they? But the second one they gave is not just super health, but super intelligence. And they say that they will be able to improve people's IQs to give you even more superpowers. And this is in print. They say, for instance, we're pretty confident we could jack it up to an IQ of 1,000. Yeah. So a genius, depending on what source you look at, is either at 160, some say 140, but let's just take 160. 1,000? And I always joke tongue in cheek. Hey, if you think the average Joe is going to get that injection, you're showing your low IQ. They're going to reserve that one for themselves. So, but the third one's really the big one. You mentioned Ray Kurzweil. He's a big transhumanist working with Google for decades. And it's super longevity. And this is their satanic plank. And this really is the big one that all these transhumanists are working on. They don't need God. They don't need Jesus. They're going to create their own immortality with science and technology and live forever. And they have different methods. And one of them, again, I mentioned with the download of the human brain, they're going to re-upload that, so before you die, we're going to get the contents of your brain, and then we'll just re-upload you into a clone of yourself. Cloning has not stopped. It's never stopped, including human cloning. We bring out the goods on that. Or it could be a cyborg, half human, half machine. We'll re-upload that and you'll continue in that existence. Or the other one that's really being pitched, thanks to Hollywood and stuff, is, again, the avatar experience. We'll download the content of your brain, re-upload it into a computer, kind of like the metaverse, and you could be whoever you want to be, live forever in this computer existence and whatever. But they're not reading the scripture. Number one, they're falling for Satan's lie. It's a counterfeit. Right. And the sad thing is, everything that they pitch, you could have if you would get saved through Jesus Christ.
That's exactly
because there's going to come a day we're going to get a new body. There's no more diseases. We're going to be perfect. Right? No more sin nature. And you're going to live in a place beyond your wildest dreams. Heavens, the millennium kingdom, new heavens, new earth. It's going to be utopia like you can't even. And guess what? I didn't need to get genetically modified for it.
That's right.
But what they're also not, I said these guys are in for a rude awakening because they're forgetting two important passages of scripture. Hebrews 9:27 says, it is appointed man to die once and then face judgment. The moment these guys die, I don't care what you downloaded from the brain. They're going to stand before God and they're going to hell. Number two, Job 14:5 clearly says God has determined the length of our lives and we're not giving a minute longer. He's in charge. So this all is a pipe dream. And of course, Satan's laughing at him and he's got him falling for it. And the reality is this. I don't doubt, Pastor Jimmy, that these guys have the technology to download the bits and bytes of the human brain, the neurons, the activity, and all that kind of stuff. I don't doubt that. But there's one thing you can never download, and that's called the soul.
That's right. You can't create the soul.
You can't. You can't download that. So here's the point. So the moment that person dies, they're standing before God.
Yeah.
And you're in a heap of trouble because you didn't get saved.
Yeah.
Number two, what kind of Frankenstein freakish scenario are they going to be re-uploading into these different scenarios, clone, avatar, cyborg? Because it ain't going to be that person. It'll mimic that person, but it will not be that person. And what are you going to be unleashed on the planet? Then you put all that together and go, wow, that's pretty freaky. Well, yeah, that's a repeat of the days of Noah. And you wonder why God's coming back to put a stop to it.
Well, he hated the Nephilim. Mm-hmm. He destroyed them first time in the flood. And then when the children of Israel were going into the promised land, he said, utterly destroy.
Yeah.
Man, woman, and child. Well, that's not like God. Except for he did not see them as his children. Mm-hmm. He saw them as the devil's children. They were, came from the seed of the devil. So let's talk about aliens for just a minute. We mentioned it on the last show. You've been on previous programs where we talked about abductions, the sexual experimentation, and right. One of the things that when you were back in Satanism and New Age, the demons or aliens told you that when we go up in the rapture, they're coming down.
Oh, yeah.
Do you believe that there's a hybrid race? Talking about the days of Noah, when there was a hybrid race on the earth, do you think that there is a hybrid race being created by the demons that are posing as aliens?
Yeah, I think it's already been done. Again, just to, real quick, if people want to go more down this, again, like you said, we have a whole documentary, aliens, UFOs, and the coming...
aliens, UFOs, and I mean...
Yeah, and the coming disappearance, coming abduction.
And that's so that you have the...
Oh, yeah, it's a huge resource. It's a huge resource that we did not that long ago. It's still very current information, UFOs, aliens, and but we entitled it that because there will be a coming abduction, but it won't be what people are being told.
Right.
They're going to explain away the rapture.
Oh, yeah, you bet.
And you think about it, you better have some excuse to explain that one away, or you think people are in mass are going to be getting saved all over the planet. Well, Satan doesn't want that. So he's been building this excuse that the reason why those people just disappeared was the aliens that got them. And you look at our culture, and who's going to go for that? Pretty much everybody, non-Christian.
Yeah.
More people in the United States of America believe in aliens than they do in God.
Oh, yeah.
More people in the United States believe that aliens have visited planet Earth than that Jesus is the Son of God. But here's my point. If, in fact, these things are going to become the excuse for the rapture of the church, and if the rapture was getting close, then logically, we would have to flip the switch, because for decades, the government's in complete denial of their existence. What's happening right now?
That's exactly.
Even with the Trump administration, they're admitting that the biologics are real, not just the spacecraft. And they're saying any day now they're going to make an official announcement. Well, that's what you would expect if it's going to be getting close to the rapture, because that's going to be the excuse.
Well, there's a documentary on Prime called The Age of Disclosure, and it's Marco Rubio, ex-military, the top military science, everybody around America telling you firsthand what they know about UFOs.
Yeah.
And as much as they can without violating top secret. The Age of Disclosure, when you're finished, you know it's real and it exists.
Oh, yeah. And what do they also say on that documentary that we also reveal is those who are behind the scenes who've been working on this and exposed to the information, what do they say? Oh, they're not aliens. They're demons.
Well, they're demons, you bet.
They're demons. Now, let's go back to your question about biologics, demons. I'm not saying thus saith the Lord, but in my occult New Age experiences, and then now what I know biblically, I would say the reason why you look at a lot of the abduction accounts with people, and they don't just get abducted, they have weird genetic experimentation be done with them. The men had their sperm taken, the ladies had their eggs taken, and typically a lot of them say, then they see in these giant test tubes, they see like a hybrid, half human, half alien, whatever. So go back to, okay, demons, are they really aliens? Demons, they're demons. But imagine this, and this is following the biblical rule. Demons only inhabit living things. People or animals, right? They're not inside this table because that's inanimate. They only inhabit living things. That's all we see in the scripture. People, pigs, whatever, it's living things. So if you were a demon, calling yourself an alien, and you wanted to walk around on planet Earth in full view of people, what would you have to do?
Create a body.
I got to create, I call it a biosuit, right? And I'm either going to possess people, which, by the way, that's where I was from. The aliens, as we mentioned in the last broadcast, gee, you're so high tech, but why can't you call me on my phone or send me an email? Yeah. Oh, no, you got to take over my vocal cords. And they call it a walk-in. They want full possession. It's a demon, right? So, but my point is, so they're already doing that. But here's my point. But imagine they create genetically an animate body that looks alien. And I'll just say this, the classic grays and things of that nature. But it's just a biobag, a biosuit for demons to inhabit. Now, here's the freaky thing. That means if, in fact, they do what they say they are going to do, not only explain away the rapture of the church, but part of the illusion is they're going to land probably all over the world, maybe even the White House, probably for effect. They're going to come out and they're going to have a seemingly tangible physical presence. But that doesn't mean that they're aliens.
That's right.
Right? But here's the point. It's really a demon in disguise in a biosuit called an alien. But guess what? Whether people realize it or not, now the planet has actual demons walking physically all over the earth. And then you go into, this is where my mind goes, Revelation 9, in the trumpet judgments in the 7-year tribulation. And it says there that the people would not stop worshiping demons. The picture we get in the 7-year tribulation is the planet is going to be flooded with demons, and people are going to worship it. And that's how these aliens pitch themselves. They're demons, but they're our saviors. They're here to help us in the time of earth changes.
Now, the Catholic Church has been very vocal about this, looking looking for the arrival of people that they said that they would baptize, or may end up baptizing them.
Exactly. That's straight from the Vatican astronomers, and the Pope himself, the previous Pope. He said he'd be willing to baptize an alien. That's on record. That's not a conspiracy theory.
Well, Billy, the thing that's happened, the rapture happens, 1 billion people vanish from planet Earth, and then all of a sudden you see spaceships come down, the UFOs, which there have been zillions of sightings. Okay. But this time they show up to everybody. And then these demons come out posing as aliens or whatever. Where's the focus? Immediately they start saying those people wouldn't change. They were keeping the planet from we've taken them up. But you're the enlightened one, so we're going to go through a 7-year period of enlightenment, is what they say.
Right.
And then in the days of Noah, God was so angry that he destroyed everyone on the planet except for 8 people.
Right.
Okay, why? Because the fallen angels came down, mated with human women, and now there was a mixture of the seed. Okay. Well, these people are being abducted. And by the way, I had Hugh Ross on the show as an astrophysicist, and we were talking about aliens and all this. And Hugh Ross said one of the common denominators, and he was a part of an observatory that he had to deal with all the UFO sightings. He said, I'm a reluctant expert. He said, I didn't want to do it. But he said that one of the common elements of people abducted is the occult.
Yes. Yeah, in fact, it's interesting you say that because that's what I came across in my research. And again, having been there, done that, believe you me, it got very demonic very fast when you tapped into that entity. And, but we're talking people like John Keel, Jacques Vallée. These are not Christians. They've been decades, the top UFOologists. They clearly state that if you really want to understand the quote UFO alien phenomena, you have to immerse yourself into the occult, poltergeist activity. And they said, not me, they said most people, if you want to understand what happens when people are abducted, you have to now have a working knowledge of the occult because it is a carbon copy. The rituals that people are forced to be a part of in occult initiation rituals, this is coming from them, is exactly the same things that people experience in alien abductions.
Wow. And they're terrified, and it changes their lives. And so, Billy, the incredible book and documentary, that this documentary now is available on DVD or download. You can electronically download it, getalifemedia.com.
Yes.
And, when you read this book, and I mean, it's just so much fascinating information, and you document this stuff.
Yeah.
You've got their words in here. And so this is so important because the world is the world of the end. The world that we're living in right now. You talk about the 10 nation confederacy. The world is now broken into 10 regions. You talk about the days of Lot, the days of Noah. It's in your face.
Right.
Everywhere you go. So I would encourage you to get the book, get the documentary. Maybe you could have a Bible study and show this documentary to your friends. But Billy, great job. Anything else you want to say about the book?
Well, just, again, why are we doing this? Well, we're hoping to freak people out so they'll go build a bug out shelter and hide out from society. No. I always go back to, what's the purpose of Bible prophecy? A lot of Bible prophecy, and certainly the book of Revelation, is future events. And a lot of it from chapter 6 to 19, a big chunk of the book, is all in this period called the 7-year tribulation that Jesus said was the worst time in the history of mankind. So wait a second. Why did God tell us so much? Well, first of all, it's not for us. We're not going to be a part of it. The reason why God tells us so much about a time frame, the 7-year tribulation, that we're not going to be a part of, is so we could develop a heart of compassion.
Right.
He tells us all this in great detail, and it's horrific. It's like a horror show, so that we would get rid of procrastination, stop being lazy, stop being self-centered, get out there and share the gospel. It's for our encouragement to get out there and be evangelists, number one. Number two, it sends the logical message that our departure's got to be getting near. God doesn't tell us the day nor the hour of the rapture, but he tells us all these other signs that of events in the 7-year tribulation to send the message, well, wait a second, if that's going to happen in the 7-year tribulation and it's being put together now, my departure has to be near.
Correct.
So not only evangelize, but get excited.
Yeah.
Last time I checked, Pastor Jimmy, going in the rapture and be with Jesus is way better than down here.
It's a good thing.
Yeah.
Billy, that's fascinating information. Thank you so much for joining us today. Billy's a frequent guest here, and I want you to go to getalifemedia.com, get this book, get the DVD or the online download where you can watch this documentary. This is powerful information. This is stuff that we need to know. Sometimes these things are kind of hard to hear, but it's the truth. It's what, as Billy documents in his book and documentary, this is what's going on. This is just the truth. And so what we want to do here at Tipping Point Ministries is to help you to prepare for the times that we're living in, to equip you with the truth for the times we're living in, and to prepare for the times of Jesus, for the return of Jesus, for the rapture, which I believe is absolutely imminent with everything that's happening in the world right now. Let me remind you again of the special project we have. My associate, John Anderson, and I have written this book, Haman's Lies. I'm very proud of this book for the sake of Israel and the Jewish people. John has done a tremendous amount of research, and we have gone into history, into the Bible, to show you how to respond to every lie, the truth, the truth. Every one of the lies that are being spoken about Israel, they're lies because they're not truth. Well, what is the truth? It's right here. We go through in detail the 25 most common lies that you're going to hear. Your children are hearing these. Your neighbors and friends are hearing these. Sometimes you're hearing them at church or from Christian people. And we go into detail about the 25 most common lies and how you can respond. And at the back of the book, we have just a quick summary guide where you can just go through very quickly and see what the answer is to all 25 of those. So it doesn't take you a long time, but you can go into detail and read it, but you also have a summary at the back. So when you're hearing lies about Israel, you can respond to that. It's going to cost us $15 a book to send these to President Trump, Vice President Vance, the cabinet, every U.S. senator, every congressman, congresswoman, the Supreme Court, all 50 governors, and key influencers in media and business across America, and 1,000 pastors. This is a huge project. It's going to cost us $15. That's our cost. That includes shipping and handling. That's our cost. Would you go right now to endtimes.com/donate and give your most generous gift? Help us. We're going on the offensive. We're not just going to stand back and wait for people to come and buy the book. We're going on the offensive, and even if they don't read it, it'll get into their office, and maybe somebody there will read it. That'll influence somebody else. But we're going to send these out the squad. Everybody in the squad is going to get one of these books right here. And we're praying, literally, we're praying that God will use this as a weapon to come against the anti-Semitism in the world, but also to equip our key leaders with the truth so that they can respond to all the lies that are coming around about Israel and Jewish people. $15, endtimes.com/donate. And when you give to us, we're going to send you a link to an electronic copy for free of Haman's Lies. Now, you can pre-order this book, the hardback or the paperback, on Amazon.com. It comes out March 31st. But when you give, we'll send you an electronic copy right away of Haman's Lies. We'll send you a link to an electronic copy of this book. I've written over 60 books. This is my best book that I've ever written with John Anderson. I believe this is going to make a difference, and that's why we're sending it out to all these key leaders and 1,000 pastors and spiritual leaders. We're very, very excited about this. I want to thank you for joining me today for Tipping Point. Join us next time. God bless you.